All right, good evening and welcome to the Planning, Zoning, and Appeals Board of November 15th, 2023. Please silence all cell phones and other noise-making devices. This meeting can be viewed live on Miami TV and Comcast Channel 77. The broadcast will have closed captioning. Any person who is a lobbyist pursuant to Chapter 2, Article 6 of the City Code must register with the City Clerk and comply with related city requirements for lobbyists before appearing before the Planning, Zoning, and Appeals Board. A person may not lobby a city official, board member, or staff member until registering. A copy of the code section about lobbyists is available in the City Clerk's office or online at www.municode.com. Any person making a presentation, formal request, or petition to the board concerning real property must make the disclosures required by the City Code in writing. A copy of this code section is available at the office of the City Clerk or online at www.municode.com. The City requires that anyone requesting action by the board to disclose before the hearing any consideration provided or committed to anyone for agreement to support or withhold objection to the requested action pursuant to City Code Section 2-8. Any person may be heard by the board through the chair for not more than 2 minutes on any proposition before the board unless modified by the chair. Any person with a disability requiring assistance, auxiliary aids, and services for this meeting may notify the hearing board's liaison to my left. When addressing the board, the member of the public must first state their name, their address, and what item will be spoken about. If the PZAB item is being continued or rescheduled, the opportunity to be heard may be at such later date before the board takes action on such item. A member of the public may also submit comments via the city's online comment form. The comments submitted through the comment form have been and will be distributed to the board members and city administration so that the board can consider the comments prior to taking any action. Additionally, the online comment form will remain open during the meeting to accept comments and distribute to the board members up until the chair closes public comment. All comments received will be included in the public record and will be considered by the board prior to any action taken. PZAB items shall proceed according to Section 7.1.4 of the Miami 21 zoning ordinance. The members of the board shall disclose any ex parte communications to remove the presumption of prejudice pursuant to Florida Statute Section 286. 0.0115 and Section 7.1.4.5 of the Miami 21 zoning ordinance. Staff will briefly present each item to be heard. For applications requiring board approval, the applicant will present its application or request to the board. If the applicant agrees with the staff recommendation, the board may proceed to its deliberation and decision. The applicant may also waive the right to an evidentiary hearing on the record. The order of presentation shall be as set forth in Miami 21 in the City Code. For appeals, the appellant will present its appeal to the board, followed by the appellee. Staff will be allowed to make any recommendation they may have. Anyone wishing to appeal any decision made by the City Commission for any matter considered at this meeting may need a verbatim record of this item. A video of the meeting may be requested at the Office of Communication or viewed online at www.miamigov.com. The City published an agenda as well as included in the notice to the public the items and topics that will be discussed at this meeting. The public has been given the opportunity to provide public comment during the meeting within reasonable proximity and time before the meeting. The public comment options established and provided for this meeting comply with Section 286.0114 Florida statutes, as the city has provided different public comment options for members of the public to indicate their support, opposition, or neutrality on the items and topics to be discussed at this board meeting. Board members, are you comfortable with all the notice provisions set forth in these uniform rules of procedure we have established for this meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
At this moment, we'll stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Call to order.
Please stand if you're presenting. All those who intend to testify on this or any other matter, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you.
Do we have any requests for absence waivers?
Yes, 3. Elon Montoya, Arthur Parasov, and Juan Zapata.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Can I get a recommendation of approval for our last meeting's minutes?
Yes.
No minutes.
There are no minutes.
No minutes? It's not there? Okay.
Can she do the roll call?
Yes, please.
Mr. Joseph Corral. Mr. Adam Gersten.
Here.
Mr. Paul Mann.
Here.
Mr. Elon Montoya. Mr. Arthur Parasov. Mr. Robert Rodriguez.
Here.
Mr. Manuel Padilla. Mr. Juan Carlos Zapata. Mr. Anthony Parrish.
Here.
Mr. Chris Collins.
Here.
We have quorum.
Are there any items for deferral?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The city would like to defer items 4 and 5. And then items 11, 12, and 13.
And these are all city-initiated items.
The city is the applicant for 4, 5, and 11. Items 12 and 13, we are not the applicant, but there's an issue with the request. And so as a result, item 12 will need to be renoticed, and item 13 cannot be heard without item 12.
Understood. For 3, 4, and 11, can we vote one time, one shot? Or do we need to go one by one?
I believe we can.
Was it 3, 4, and 11?
3, 4, 11, 12, and 13.
I was going to do the city-initiated items.
I'm sorry,
first.
4 and 5. I'm sorry, it's items 4 and 5.
4 and 5.
And I just wanted to say this is in relation to approximately 171 Northeast 42th Street. For item 4, 14437 and 14534. Item 5 is also located at 171 Northeast 42th Street. And 12 is item 14779. It's in relation to a property located at 7816 Northwest 2 Court. And 13
Yes.
is also related to a property located at 7816 Northwest 2 Court, 260 Northwest 79th Street, 290 Northwest 79th Street, 294 Northwest 79th Street, 7835 Northwest 3 Avenue.
Let's do companion items 4 and 5 first, since they're companion items. Would anyone like to speak specific to the request for deferral of items 4 and 5? Yes.
Hi, Maurice A Ferre with Ackerman. I represent the property owners. We're meeting with the neighbors. We've had a couple meetings. We're meeting again with them next week, so we would just request that it goes to the next meeting, which I believe is December 6th.
Okay. How is the agenda for that first meeting in December?
Well, I think it's a light agenda, but I've been told that it's not. There's 7 items, and there are 5 of them are CU revocations. So there's only,
Okay.
and that's including the items from tonight.
Understood. Would anyone like to make a motion to defer items 4 and 5 to December 6th, it was?
Motion to defer.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Paul Mann.
Yes.
Robert Rodriguez.
Yes.
Manuel Padilla. Anthony Parrish. Chris Collins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak specific to the request for deferral for item 11? With that, do you have a date in mind that you would like to move item 11 to?
Everything to the December 6th meeting.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion for PZAB item 11?
Motion to defer. Yes. Second. Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Joseph Corral. Yes. Adam Gersten.
Yes.
Paul Mann,
Yes.
Robert Rodriguez,
Yes.
Manuel Padilla, Anthony Parrish, Chris Collins.
Yes. PZAB 12, which is located at 7816 Northwest 2nd Court. Would anyone from the public like to speak specific to the request for deferral? With that, I'll bring it back to the board. Would anyone like to make a motion to defer to December 6th?
Motion to defer. Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Joseph Corral, Adam Gersten,
Yes.
Paul Mann,
Yes.
Robert Rodriguez,
Yes.
Manuel Padilla, Anthony Parrish, Chris Collins.
Yes. And the last one you said was item 13, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Would anyone would anyone from the public like to speak specific to the request for deferral of item 13, which is also 7816 Northwest 2nd Court? With that, we'll bring it back to
Motion.
second, please.
Second.
Roll call.
Joseph Corral, Adam Gersten,
Yes.
Paul Mann,
Yes.
Robert Rodriguez,
Yes.
Manuel Padilla, Anthony Parrish, Chris Collins.
Yes. So that brings us back to item 1.
A resolution of the Miami Planning, Zoning, and Appeals Board approving or denying the appeal filed by Stephen Smith, President of the Board of Directors of 900 Biscayne Condo, appellant, of the decision of the Planning, Zoning, and Appeals Board reversing or upholding the City of Miami Planning Department's issuance of warrant number PZ 2316544, issued pursuant to Article 4, Table 12, and Article 7, Section 7.1.1.2 and 7.1.2.4 of Ordinance Number 13114, the zoning ordinance of the City of Miami, Florida, as amended, Miami 21 Code, to allow for the recreational facility use on a parcel zone CS Civic Space Transact Zone located at 1095 Biscayne Boulevard, Miami, Florida, making findings containing a severability clause and providing for an effective date.
Mr. Chair, when we left off at this, I had presented the application and the appellate was still presenting their case. So I'm not sure if you want to pick up there or if you would like me to represent.
Was there anyone on the board who was not at that last meeting? Member Rodriguez, were you? I don't think you were at the last meeting, correct? Can you do a brief overview?
You can. Maybe. I can get my computer to work.
It was working. Maybe she didn't.
I apologize for the delay.
No problem. Take your time.
And hopefully now it comes up on your screens. Maybe. So this is an appeal of a warrant for a recreational use facility at 1095 Biscayne Boulevard. The park was established in the early 1900s and was considered part of the Port of Miami until it was moved to Dodge Island in the 1960s. In 1976, Bicentennial Park was opened, and then in 2001, Dover Cole and Partners redesigned the proposal for the Bicentennial Park, and then in 2005, Museum Park Master Plan was done by Cooper Robertson and Partners. The request is to, again, allow new recreational facility use in a civic space transect zone. Our civic space is typically our parks, and so it does require a warrant, which is basically a conditional use permit. The recreational facility that they would like to install, or that is partially installed, is exercise equipment at Maurice A Ferre Park. You can see in the aerial to your on your right that that's the park. This is some pictures of the site and the location. This is the location of the exercise equipment, so you can see it in the smaller version relative to the entire park, and then it's zoomed in on your left. This is a photo rendering of what the equipment is intended to look like. So for a warrant review criteria, we look for the following: compliance with Miami 21, the intent of the transect, the guiding principles of the Miami 21 Code, the manner in which the proposed use will operate given its specific location and proximity to a less intense uses. And then Article 4, Table 12, which is our design review criteria. We look at these as they're applicable to the application. So for Miami 21, we looked at Article 7 and found that it was consistent. We provided notification. We did not receive, the applicant provided notification. We did not receive any opposition or any phone calls or any requests for information based on those notifications that were sent out. All of the documents were properly reviewed in E-Plan, and so we found that it was consistent with the criteria set forth in Miami 21. 2.2.1, the intent of the transect. We found that it was consistent with the intent of the transect, or the overall intent of Miami 21, as it increases access to the natural environment through the Bay Walk, the River Walk, or a north-south greenway, or a new park. So this is a park and an enhancement of a recreational facility to a park. Additionally, we found that it met the guiding principles of Miami 21 Code. We looked at the city, the community, and the block. Most form-based codes ask you to either take a micro to macro look at your context, or a macro to micro look moving in the opposite direction. So we found that it created a diversity of land use, and that should be distributed throughout the city, and enable a variety of economic activity, workplace, residence, recreation, and civic activity. So this provided an active use in what was a passive recreational park. So this provided an active recreational use within the park. We found that it was consistent with the community guiding principles, that ordinary activities in daily living should occur within walking distance of most dwellings, allowing independence for those who do not drive. This is across the street from several condominiums. It provides a range of open space, including parks, squares, and playgrounds, should be distributed within neighborhoods and urban centers. So again, this provides a recreational use and active recreational use to the condominium owners across the street and is a destination for all Miamians. It further increases the civic, institutional, and commercial activity that should be embedded in mixed-use urban centers and not isolated and remote single-use complexes. So we're actually looking for a diverse mix of uses. So we're looking for, museums, condominiums, recreational space, passive space. We're looking for all those different uses that can support each other. And then we looked at the block and the building and thought that it met the civic building and gathering spaces should be located to reinforce community and to support self-government. We then looked at the manner in which the proposed use would operate given its specific location and proximity to less intense uses. As you can see, the green is what is zoned civic space. Everything to the north and to the west is zone T6. And so by nature, civic is considered a less intense use, so everything surrounding it is actually a more intense use. We also looked at Article 4, Table 12, design review criteria as applicable. We specifically looked at the use, which comes to the function and density, or it's supposed to be function and density. Of course, there is no density here as there's no units. So we're looking really at the use or the function of the recreational use facility. So to ensure the transition of intensity that complements the neighborhood context, we felt that the active recreational use within the civic space complemented the surrounding condominiums and could be used by members in that neighborhood, in those neighborhoods or that neighborhood. And then also to collaborate the intensity and the use to facilitate walkability and promote transit as well. So again, this is an active recreational use within a passive park. And so it allows people to both walk to the active recreational use from the condominiums. We went further and looked and explored Miami Comprehensive Neighborhood Plan. This is not part of our criteria. However, we did find that it was supported by the parks and recreational element of the Miami Comprehensive Neighborhood Plan. And it was supported specifically by these 3 goals, objectives, and policies. And when we look at a warrant, which is for the most part a conditional use permit in most other cities, and we look at exceptions, the comprehensive plan has already been taken into consideration when our use table has been made. So we've already, by allowing the warrant or by allowing it to be by exception, it already meets our comprehensive plan. If it didn't meet our comprehensive plan, it would not be allowed within our use table at all. We did look at conditions and put some conditions. Most of them are boilerplate conditions. The applicant appealed, and I'll run through their appeal, the appellant appealed basically on 4 items. 1, that they dispute that the proposed development will increase the appeal or enhance the park, although they felt that this was also a subjective standard. And these are taken from their letter of appeal. Their appeal basis 2 is based on the 2007 master plan, the 2003 Parks master plan, and the CNMP, which I believe is supposed to be the Miami Comprehensive Neighborhood Plan, the MCNMP, which they're saying that we did not consider. Again, the criteria set forth that we are asked to analyze in Miami 21 for a warrant does not include any master plans or the Miami Comprehensive Neighborhood Plan. However, we do feel that it is and does meet the goals, objectives, and policies set forth within the master plans and within the Miami Neighborhood Comprehensive Plans. So as you can see, this is the master plan is on your right. And master plans are often not final construction documents. They are giving us an idea of what should come and what should then be drilled down to, and then the next level would be the construction documents that come past a master plan. So typically a master plan is just a high level of what could potentially be installed at a park or at a site. There's a lot of things that come after that. Construction documents, construction documents, and then also doing renderings and getting through our schematic drawings. A lot of projects go through value engineering before they ever actually get to permitting and then being built. So you can see that in overall context, this really does fit within the master plan and is not, and is still, could still be supported by the master plan. Appeal 2, again, is based on the Miami Comprehensive, what I believe is the Miami Comprehensive Neighborhood Plan. Again, we are not, as per Miami 21, the Miami Comprehensive Plan is not something we're asked to look at. We do, however, feel that it is supported by the parks and recreational elements, that element that is found within that plan. Again, they object, again, more based on the comprehensive plan. Staff does feel that it does meet all of the goals, policies, and objectives set forth in the Miami Neighborhood Comprehensive Plan. These are more policies that they brought up from their letter. What you're seeing in blue is staff's analysis of the Miami Comprehensive Plan. Again, we do feel that it meets the policies of the goals, policies, and objectives put forth in the parks and recreational element. Appeal basis 4 is not really within the purview of this review at all. It's something that either deals with the building permit or issues that are not under the purview of the planning department or under this request. And so staff's recommendation is to deny the appeal and uphold the warrant.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from the appellant.
Steve Smith, 900 Biscayne Boulevard. Brian, you want to introduce yourself?
Brian Kern, also 900 Biscayne. Thanks everybody for coming out tonight.
Welcome.
I'm glad that we're here at 7 p.m. and not 1:30. We certainly respect and appreciate the time that you gave us, and more so, providing us a continuance for our appeal from the last meeting. It was obviously a very late night, and we appreciate the board's interest in a full hearing of the facts about this precious resource, Maurice A Ferre Park. What we know is that when the city is left to its own devices, they will consume park and green spaces like Pac-Man gobbling up pellets on a video game. Inch by inch, acre by acre, the city's dependency on consuming green space, I think at the worst, is heartbreaking. We happened to be here for that long night, and I don't think there's a better example from that hearing the last time, whereas a donated piece of park space in Brickell was regulated to a parking lot and storage depot for revenue purposes, which ultimately had to be returned to the owner for what will now be another building. As I mentioned last time, and I appreciated your patience, we are not attorneys. We are here representing a neighborhood as representatives from our condo board. This is not about solely the warrant for the gym. This is about our collective last attempt to preserve an incredible, well-planned waterfront green space for generations to come. This is about a secret plan to reshape this park in one person's image that completely deviates from the master plan. This is about a complete disregard for public input. This is about skirting oversight by chunking up much larger vision in an undocumented plan into bite-sized pieces to avoid this very body's oversight. We're going to walk through a slideshow detailing why we disagree with the city planners. We appreciate your efforts. About arguments to support what's being done against the rules and regulation and why it is important for this body to revoke the warrant and all the subsequent warrants which will be coming before the staff. While city staff has suggested the studies, planning documents, guidelines are advisory only, not hard, fast rules, many of our neighbors, based on buying and investment decisions, base those decisions on the vision and the documents detailed in that incredible vision for this incredible waterfront park. They're not irrelevant to those people that invested in the neighborhood. With that, we will provide members copies of the presentation for the record, and we will try to be succinct in making sure you get our perspective this evening. I think you're very familiar with what we're asking for. We're asking the board to reverse the decision of the staff to deny the approval of this warrant. The conditional approval is to allow the construction of a recreational facility. Might I add to the city staff, every building in that neighborhood that is served by this park has a state-of-the-art, world-class gym within their facilities. First, the conditional approval recommendation for the warrant was issued improperly due to the planning director's incomplete interpretation of the goals set forth in the Miami Comprehensive Neighborhood Master Plan and other guiding documents. Second, the conditional approval was approved improperly due to the fact that the trust failed to provide complete and factual information, which we will highlight in our claim, as to their compliance with various city code provisions when seeking a recommendation approval for the warrant. Some background on this property, and many of you articulated extensive knowledge about this property and how it came to be. Unfortunately, this park has been the joke and headlines for what has become a part of it. You can read these headlines for yourself. A young child injured with work that was not being done according to city code. A giant Miami landmark tree chopped down without a permit. I think you all know, I'm not going to walk you through the history. We talked about this last time. You know this was the history, and the city did a good job identifying the importance and history of this great landmark. These are the pictures, some shared by city staff, that show the greatness of the green space that has been provided to the citizens of Miami. The park closed in 2010 and reopened in 13 and 14. We understand that times were different then. The city wasn't flush with cash, and they had to make very tough decisions based on capital that was available to them at the time. So there was a value-based engineered solution for the park that still prioritized green space. The master plan is ambitious and well thought out. It states the various areas of the park ought to be differing uses, aesthetic standards, and functions. The master plan envisions parts of the park being used for open space, active recreation, and other parts serving wooded groves, botanical gardens, and we'll show you some pictures that highlight the greatness of the vision of this park. As you can see in these renderings, there's not a water park, there's not a dog park, there's not the recreational use that the city believes is appropriate for this park. Extraordinary is what you see. In the documents that were presented, the commission and approved 2008, it was worth noting that the area where the outdoor gym is now at issue and the warrant is being proposed was clearly marked as a marquee element. A marquee element named Las Colinas, or the Scallops. An alternative design foresaw this area as a hilly, open fields with view of the water. The red star highlights on the next slide where the gym is close to the water. I think we said it was about 100 yards, almost to the T. This is how this area is described in the master plan, gentlemen. Architectural and exotic. Architectural and exotic. I would love for the city staff to articulate how in the world this gym meets this type of incredible standard. Again, look at the lovely green spaces for use of our citizens in downtown Miami. Things called the Grove, the Scallops, not the gym, not the dog park. Again, budgets were different then. We certainly understand. And even the value engineered proposal foresaw this area as a hilly, open space that would transition into the gardens at the south of the park. Vision boards in the approved final document show an area designed for passive recreation and unobstructed play. Noted in the master plan suggested a concrete aluminum outdoor gym would fit the character of this park. I hope you all have spent some time in this park. It's an extraordinary asset to all of Miami. These planning documents are not just aspirational. They know this park is special. And not just because it holds a special place in our hearts, but because the commission has legally approved plans for what it should look like. While it is not reasonable to expect every single blade of grass in Ferre Park will be planted to match the drawings, do we have unrealistic expectation that at least should resemble what the vision and documents have shown? At the very least, the planning director cannot approve plans that conflict with the master plan or make its execution impossible. We've had two arguments, and we're going to roll through these very quickly, and I'm going to provide you some documentation so you can review them while Brian makes the argument.
So again, we've got two arguments. They're both distinct and independent. Either one argument should support repealing the warrant. So we've got the first argument, which states, the conditional approval of the warrant was issued improperly, in part due to the planning director's incomplete interpretation of the goals set forth in the Miami Comprehensive Neighborhood Master Plan and other guiding documents. This is what the city code says. And if we look at the third line there, the review shall consider the guiding principles of the Miami 21 code. Not one or two principles, not the planning department's favorite principles, but the principles, which in my humble opinion implies all of them. So the analysis from the city staff in this case followed these parameters, but superficially and in an incomplete manner that looked at certain standards of the MCNP, but wholly ignored others. Here we've got their analysis doing just that. So we argue that the planning department conducted its analysis in a way that was incomplete. Specifically, we argue that the planning department only verified that the application met 3 of the standards in the MCNP, but it ignored the fact that the warrant application violated at least 2 provisions of the 2023 Parks Master Plan, 12 provisions of the MCNP, and blatantly violated the Museum Park Master Plan. So I've got 4 more slides here that basically walk through those specific violations. I can spare you guys going through all of them in detail. Some of them are somewhat subjective, but we can spend some time on the highlights. So a lot of these standards really center around an obligation of the city and the Park Trust to conduct surveys, solicit public outreach before making material changes to the park. This first one, Objective PR 1.2, states that as far as we know, and all of our great neighbors who came out to support us this evening, I haven't seen any outreach whatsoever. On this next group of violations, the last is particularly noteworthy. Policy PR 5.1.2 states priority in park development must be given to the quality of programs and the physical condition of existing park facilities, and to meeting existing deficiencies before constructing new facilities for parks and recreation. So the big existing deficiency in the park today is the glaring difference between reality and what the master plan reflects. So any updates to the park should be a reflection of that master plan. They should be a work toward implementing that master plan. We disagree that there should be any development whatsoever that inhibits the eventual execution of that master plan, and this gym does exactly that. Okay, so on this slide, the first 2 violations pertain to the requirement for community outreach. Again, we haven't seen any of that. The last 2 are also pretty important. Policy PR 6.1.2 plainly states the city should work to implement the Museum Park Master Plan and not move away from it. I think this is probably the most glaring violation of MCNP policies. The second one, MCNP Goal PR-8, asks that the park development encourages the development of high-quality cultural arts facilities and programs within the city. This is a crown jewel of a park. You know, it's got 2 beautiful museums, the foremost art museum in Miami, and I don't see how this development fosters, culture or arts in any way whatsoever. All right, and on to our last piece of this argument. We've got several more. Most importantly, I think, is the Museum Park Master Plan itself. I think we've sort of driven that point home enough that a lot of the planned developments in the park, and not just the gym itself, but the numerous future warrants that you guys will be reviewing between soccer fields, water features, pickleball courts, you name it, are going to drastically change the shape and the usage of that park. So that wraps up argument 1. Pass it back to Steve for number 2.
I think the one thing I would highlight from argument 1 is that not once did the trust reach out to the DNA or any other community organization for input. As mind-boggling as that is to me, maybe it's not to others. Argument number 2 really surrounds the conditional approval was approved in error due to the fact that the trust failed to provide complete and factual information as to the compliance with various city code provisions when applying for the warrant. As part of its application process, the Bayfront Management Trust submitted to the city a survey of its property, which is required. We argue that the survey submitted presented false information which misled our hardworking city plan reviewers. In addition, the city regulations state that if the work is planned on a property that could potentially disrupt trees, the trust needs to submit plans on how these trees will be protected or removed. Because of the aforementioned faulty survey, this provision was also violated. On April 7th, with its initial application, the trust submitted a survey to the park, to the city. The survey was conducted on March of 2019 with field work revisions in October of 21. The city code, as you all probably know better than me, requires a survey of less than 12 months. The planners and our staff realized that. They initially rejected this activity, but it was only after the city was assured our staff that a survey had signed off on the survey occurring in March 2023 and that there had been no significant changes to the area. A claim, guys, that is genuinely, simply not true. Unfortunately, the trust assurance to the city that the survey presented the state of the property at the time of the application is just demonstrably false. In mid-March and early April, before the submittal of the relevant application to the city, the trust entered into an agreement with the theater company. Does kind of align with the master plan, with the arts and cultural events. They began building temporary event space constructed out of shipping containers within the boundaries of this park. This new construction is not found in the survey submitted to the city. It was done without permits. I understand that's not the purview of this board, but it was also not obvious to city reviewers looking at the building databases. However, the theater group that the trust partnered with in this endeavor made several posts on social media that show the work as it was being completed. More parking spaces, more hard surfaces. I'm not going to show you this video, but it just highlights what the city planners thought was the case in this park and what reality really is. This is what our community expects. As we continue our argument, beyond the fact that it shows the trust violated the city code and was unethical with our staff, the faulty city survey is significant for other reasons. It is clear from the notes in the planning department's analysis that the city staff believe the trust was not engaged in any construction and would not engage in any construction that would harm any trees. You guys have seen the news accounts. Again, simply not true. The claim is administrative error. In fact, the planning director makes it clear that the recommendation for approval of the warrant is conditioned on tree protection measures being a key component of any work done on this site. By submitting the faulty survey, the trust was able to obscure the fact that it was indeed engaged in unpermitted work that was harming trees, water runoff, concrete laid within feet of trees. Beyond the creation of the unpermitted performance space, the trust was also engaged in other work to illegally remove trees within this property, as has been documented in news accounts over the last 30 days. Without obtaining a permit, the trust moved down a very large tree in late June. A landmark tree, I might add, that bordered Biscayne Boulevard and highlighted the entrance to this beautiful property. The trust submitted documents to apparently cover up its tracks and at first lied about it publicly. It was a trip hazard. Here's an email from the trust director, guys. From the trust director to the DNA suggesting that it was permitted.
I'm sorry, 1 second. Is this tree in the location of the equipment?
I'm sorry?
Is this tree in the location of the exercise equipment that's in question?
Shares the same address.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
understand.
Okay.
I understand. This is the beautiful landmark tree, though, that was mowed down. And other trees, though, to your point, that are near the gym and other construction are being impacted. To summarize, as this application for warrant is being considered, the trust conducted illegal unpermitted tree removal, built a performance space illegally without permits, paving over green space, submitted a certified survey and hid the work that was currently ongoing, misled city staff about tree protection efforts on his property. Regardless of whether all of these events were done on purpose or a series of errors, the end result is that the trust failed to submit material, factual information with the application for this warrant. By doing so, the trust violated the very conditions specified by the planning director and the conditional approval for this permit.
Yeah, I mean, the survey that was submitted outdated, and it influenced what the city did, right? If they had put forth a survey that said, yeah, we're killing trees, I don't think this warrant would have ever been issued. That's sort of the crux of this argument.
There's more arguments here, guys, that basically just follow what Brian had suggested from the Miami Code. I don't think we've highlighted some state law here that also seems to have been disregarded in the development of these enhanced features of the park. Yep. Yes. We okay?
Any questions?
In conclusion, we are asking, if not begging, this body to revoke the warrant based on arguments provided. Simply, we want the trust to abide by the incredible vision that bodies like this and many others that contributed to this incredible master plan, minimally, gentlemen, we fully expect that at least the neighbors and the citizens would be engaged to provide some input on what might be appropriate. We also finally ask that you hold the trust accountable, ensure they follow the law.
It's worth pointing out, I mean, we know this is a planning and zoning appeals board. We're here because this is the only avenue by which we can be heard about what's going on in the park and have some public input in it. So, just want you guys to consider that. And what we're really asking for, I mean, I know the Park Trust works hard. We're not disputing that. We just want to say in what's going on in our city resources. We also would love it if the Park Trust would coordinate with the other two parks that are being built adjacent. So Parcel B, which hopefully comes in, I know that's county property, but also the underdeck under the highway. We're not opposed to new development. We just want it done appropriately and not in a vacuum. And we also want it being done above board. And we'd prefer that they follow the law.
And what we already know, and we talked about it last time, is that the museums took 18 acres of this beautiful park space, and while they are gems in our community, we did lose almost half of the green space that was originally prescribed for this park. Anyway, thank you so much for your time and attention.
All right. Thank you for your presentation. At this point, I'll open up for public comment.
Mr. Chair, the applicant has a chance to present. They're the appellant.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Chair, does the appellant rest? Meaning,
Does the appellant
include
rest?
your-
Well, we did have the intervener status question also from the last time. We would certainly like the opportunity to respond to anything and any new evidence that might be brought before this board.
And the DNA has a presentation.
The microphone, please. I'm sorry.
Sorry, the DNA has a presentation as well. I think it, oops. Sorry, guys.
It was very late at our last meeting. Did we make a decision if they were intervener? I don't recall. I think we...
You did not.
Good evening, Chair. My name is James Torres, President of DNA, Vice Chair, and board members. The request was made for intervener status the last time around that we all met. It was open for debate, and I believe at around 1:30 in the morning, it was agreed upon that I would have intervener status on that. But we can kind of confirm through the attorneys.
Yeah, I would respectfully disagree. Because we talked about what would be considered at this meeting, and it was mentioned that you had not determined whether or not the intervener status had actually been conveyed. And I'd like to address the intervener status before you make that determination. And I'd also ask them whether they really want intervener status or they just want time to speak on the public comment.
So it was very late at the last hearing. Let's hear your reasoning for being the request for an intervener, and then we'll hear from the city attorney, and we'll make a decision.
Perfect. So I'll kind of go over the first slide so that way there's color as to what your request is, Chairman. The Downtown Neighbors Alliance, AKA the DNA, is the city's only public advocacy group focusing on civil concerns within the downtown's core. The downtown cores includes 17 condominium buildings that are residential, with a residential representation of 10,000 constituents and or bodies that live in the core, over 30,000 residents that live in the entire downtown. We oversee the advocacy for the entire community. So what does that mean? It means the DNA is the umbrella to the 900 buildings and other sister properties that are within the core of downtown. Our intervener status to provide and share information on this park is important to show because we advocate on behalf of the community and these parks as well. To give you some additional color, some of the advocacy that we have done. Number one, Bayfront Park, advocating for improvements such as repairs to the fountain and such large events. We were responsible for the ultra scenario when they left and came back. The agreement was signed with us. Maurice A Ferre Park, advocating for a large donation of MAF Park for the 900 condominium. What I want to share on that piece is something that's not really talked about here. But this is an important piece, Chair, if you would let me finish this, please. Is the 900 community came to the DNA because there were problems of homelessness and crime at MAF at one point late last year. We brokered a meeting between the trust and the 900 communities in which there was an exchange of $39,000 that was given to the trust to provide cleaning and removal of homeless in a non-criminal way aspect. So the DNA is intricate in bringing these parties together to address these issues. So that's why I am requesting the intervener status to further show the destruction of our park by our current trust chair that is happening at that area.
Understood. Now we'll hear from the city.
Thank you for the opportunity there.
Yes.
Thank you. Intervener status under Miami 21. Section 7.1.4.3 parentheses D, Miami 21 defines intervener as a person whose interest in the proceedings are adversely affected in a manner greater than those of the general public. An intervener is considered a party to the proceedings. This is an appeal. So they become a party to the proceedings. See section 7.1.4.3G, Miami 21. So when you get intervener status, you may make a presentation, conduct cross-examination, make final arguments in the order as decided by the chair. While Miami 21 does not provide additional criteria in determining who should be granted intervener standing, Florida case law is instructive and binding upon the PZAB. Notably, even though the PZAB is granted wide deference in interpreting its own ordinances, the PZAB may not ignore controlling law. See, for example, Miami-Dade County versus City of Miami. Additionally, and for purposes of granting or denying an intervener request, section 7.1.4.5D provides that this PZAB decisions must be based upon competent, substantial evidence in the record. Under Miami 21, competent, substantial evidence shall mean testimony or other evidence based on personal observation or fact or opinion, evidence offered by an expert on a matter that requires specialized knowledge and that is relevant to the issues to be decided. Competent, substantial evidence is evidence a reasonable mind could accept as adequate to support a conclusion. So the state law standard, the Florida standard for intervener status and standing is Renard versus Dade County, 261 Southern 2nd, 832. Individual standing to enforce a valid zoning ordinance requires a showing of special damages peculiar to themselves, differing in kind as distinguished from damages differing in degree suffered by the community as a whole, quoting Boucher versus Novotny. Renard further defined an aggrieved person as one having a legally recognizable interest which is or will be affected by the zoning action, and further clarifies that an individual having standing must have a definite interest exceeding the general interest in community good shared in common with all citizens. Relying on the Renard test, the court in Pichette versus City of North Miami, 642 Southern 2nd, 1165, found that appellants who were 3 separate individuals challenging a zoning ordinance in their individual capacities had no legally recognized interest which would be adversely affected by the challenged zoning ordinance and thus lacked standing to challenge the ordinance. Specifically, none of the appellants lived adjacent to or abutting the rezoned area which would allow an amphitheater. More importantly, the court found that appellants presented no genuine issue of fact that they would be affected by noise, traffic, impact, land value, or any of those things. In Miami-Dade County versus City of Miami, the court found that the City of Miami departed from the essential requirements of law by granting 2 residents who both lived more than 500 feet away from the affected area standing to appeal the city's Historic Preservation Board decision with regard to the preservation of the Coconut Grove Playhouse. Highlighting that the City of Miami had previously issued an opinion that an aggrieved party for standing in zoning matters was a resident living within 500 feet of the property, the court found that both residents failed to meet the special injury standard as an aggrieved person. The fact that the Playhouse was a facility both residents could attend, just like here attending the park, that both lived close to the Playhouse, that both wanted the Playhouse preserved, and that the Playhouse was deemed important to the community was, as the court emphasized, insufficient to meet the special injury standard for designation as aggrieved parties, with standing to challenge, and failed to amount to more than a generalized interest. See Friggles versus City of Coral Gables. So here, we don't even have people that are saying they're aggrieved by this decision. We have an organization called the Downtown Neighbors Alliance. So when you have an associational challenge of standing, that organization has to prove that that organization is specially detrimented by the ruling. So here, how is the DNA specially affected by the issuance of this warrant? That's what you're supposed to determine. And I just wanted to mention that Miami 21 provides that with a warrant, the filing of the appeal shall state the specified reasons for such appeal, together with payment of any required fee. The appeal may be filed only by the appellant, by the applicant, or in a person who is aggrieved by the action of the Planning, Zoning, and Appeals Board. In Chabal versus Dade County, the court found that we agree that the association was without standing to appear before it was the Board of County Commissioners. It is clear that a representative association, such as the appellant here, could not sue in state courts. It would have no standing unless it, rather than its members, had suffered some special injury. So you haven't heard any testimony or evidence how the DNA is particularly affected by the placement of recreational equipment in a park that affects the DNA as an institution different from any other person. And I would further mention that the evidence that they provided about trees being chopped down, kids falling in concrete, a water park, a dog park, that's all speculative stuff. They've shown no special injury or no damage that affects them. And that's the legal standard for intervenor status and standing in this case. And while I'm not an advocate in this role, I'm just advising this panel that it appears that they have not met the burden of intervenor status.
Can I? Thank you. Just 2 questions.
Sure.
Does your presentation contain information that we did not hear in the first presentation?
Yes, there's some information that does present that was not shared with the first presentation.
Okay.
Secondly, with all due respect to council, as the DNA, we act as the association, an umbrella for all the 17 buildings. So there is a vested interest because they do kind of report to us. Our relationships that we share, Miami Heat, for example, FDOT, for example, Miami-Dade County on Parcel B and other intricate components that are within the downtown district, give us the information that we send out. So there is a vested interest. So with all due respect to City Council, we have a vested interest on this to move forward as the intervenor status.
Understood. And how long is your presentation?
I have 14 slides.
10 minutes, 15 minutes?
15 minutes, give or take. But I'd like to present the attorney that's representing the DNA, so that way there's additional clarity on this.
Hi, David Winker. I have law offices at 4720 South Lejeune. I just wanted to put on the record a counter-argument on the standing and the necessity of special injury. I put on the screen and I will provide it for the record. This is an order from Judge Hansman concerning the Wawa, where the city of Coral Gables was recently ordered to cease the approval of the Wawa gas station across from the Carver Elementary. My screen went off, but Judge Hansman wrote, while special injury is generally required in cases challenging governmental action, plaintiffs here have alleged that the city's attorney's approval of the modification is illegal and ultra vires. In circumstances such as this, involving a claim that action taken was illegal and void, i.e. without proper notice or legislative authority or in excess of police power, courts, including the 3rd District, have held that no special injury needs to be pled or proven. He cites Parsons v. City of Jacksonville, 295 Southern 3rd, 892 at 894. Goes on to quote, under Florida law, no special injury is required for actions attacking void ordinances. David v. City of Dunedin, 473 Southern 2nd, 304 at 306. I'm going to be making a small argument that will be less than 5 minutes concerning why it is ultra vires in addition to that, so I'll leave it at that. I just wanted to put on the record for as you guys make a decision on giving intervener status. Thank you so much.
Could I just ask real quick, what was the name of that case you just provided?
The case that I was quoting from?
Yes.
That is, I'll give you the citation.
Is that a 3rd District case?
No, this is Judge Hansman's order in Gables Accountability Project, Inc. versus City of Coral Gables.
So is that case binding in this proceeding to the
No,
City
but
of Miami Planning and Zoning and Appeals Board?
You know, but let's be clear,
No.
the law that he cited, that I read into the record, the basis for the decision is absolutely binding. And I will tell you, the city attorney, I vehemently disagree. They are entitled to intervener status, and I think it would be a mistake not to grant it because it will be another grounds for appeal. So again, we'll try to make it very quick, but I'll leave it with that.
I would just counter that the little excerpt that we saw spoke about a decision by a city attorney that was ultra vires that has no nexus to this.
I think
case.
let's make a vote. Yes.
But just procedurally, like I want, because I think we were trying to find, it seemed like we needed to review what the procedure is. And with all due respect, my friend, I think getting the input from the city attorney as to whether, your opinion on how the decision should go was a little premature, because I think we need to decide whether we're going to hear it, then actually have our hearing and let everyone do the thing. And then if we ask, then you could say, well, I think, but I think just for right now, we should just do that. Because I think we need to have a whole hearing right now first, right?
Yeah, with a motion.
With a motion.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Do we have a second for intervener status?
I'm sorry. So you were making a motion?
Making a motion that we should just have the hearing, right?
And that's what I thought. I didn't think we were voting on for the intervener status. I listened to Mr. Weissong, and it does seem like his interpretation of the applicable law is that with a special injury is pretty narrow and has been used many times. And yet what the other attorney cited was a much broader interpretation. Let me ask you this, Mr. Weissong. To avoid this problem, this board has the right to ask, for example, this particular who is applying for, without granting them intervener status, we can ask him questions as long as we want to ask, and he can respond to those questions. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and that's why I asked earlier, do you really want intervener status? Because intervener status is more than just extra time to speak. It's you're injecting yourself in a case, and you become a party to the case. And that's why I think with all due respect, that it's a threshold issue. You know, you don't let the party make the arguments and then determine whether they should be a party. You determine whether they have standing to
No, I
even...
think that's all I'm saying, is that I'd like to ask some questions about, say, how big, more about defining the organization, things like that, and then we can, I guess we could all decide.
But to Mr. Parrish's point,
I don't even
I'm not
think we need intervener
foreclosing
status.
him from giving any information. I just don't think he should be...
I think we can operate, and they can say everything they want to say if this board is willing to hear it,
through the chair.
without granting officially the intervener status.
Let me just ask, is this significant? If I give you 15 minutes for your presentation, does it matter to you if you have an intervener status or not? I don't plan on interrupting you or...
Mr. Chair, as long as we're willing to be heard, I'm willing to give up the intervener status.
Okay.
As long as this body here is going to be very proactive in listening to what we have to say.
Absolutely.
It's key to the success of debunking the warrant that's before you.
Through the chair, if I could ask our attorney, Mr. Weislock, something.
Sure.
Mr. Winkler seems to have brought up, in his case, he seems to be indicating that the trust acted incorrectly. That is a whole different can of worms. So I think that if we do grant intervener status here, we have to know whether his statements are correct. We have to then have a different trial, so to speak. We have to decide whether the trust acted appropriately or not. And I don't think we can do that here.
And to answer your point, I would encourage the chair to let them not stray into things like that, because what this is about is whether or not a warrant should be issued for this park. That's it.
I think we're
all that other
treading in a
stuff
really
is
deep
noise.
water that I don't think we need to go at all.
What I would like...
This is really pretty simple. It's whether some exercise equipment is going to be allowed in the park or not. So it's really, they're opening it up into a huge issue, which is definitely worthy, but there is nothing stopping your organizations from going to commission and asking to speak on a non-agenda item and stating your case plainly, because I remember from 2 weeks ago, your bigger concern was what comes after this.
Correct.
Right? So this little pocket, which has precedence in the city, there are no less than 15 parks in the city of Miami that have exercise equipment in them.
Correct.
So we're making a huge deal about just making it 16 parks that have exercise equipment. You guys are trying to argue a much bigger scene here, a much bigger case.
Let's do this to move
So
past...
if you're trying to...
Just one second. Okay, go ahead.
I'll continue this argument when our time comes.
With all due respect to Board Member Mann, the issue that comes into play, and again, I don't want to get into this can of worms, but it has to be made public. Anytime any of the residents within the DNA scope, any of the 17 buildings that come before the trust and or commission and or the PZAB board, the new thing that the trust is putting out there, especially the chairman, is that we're racist. And it's a way to kind of change the narrative. So we are here today with members of the community to express our whole heartfelt expression that what they're doing at the trust is incorrect and deviating from a master plan without, quote unquote, sitting us at the table, because 90% of the usage of this park is downtowners. Even though it's a park, it's not a regional park, it's not tropical park. We understand that. But having a seat at the table or doing some outreach, as the city currently does on other parks, we're not having that. And it's a problem. So however you decide that I proceed, I'm okay with that. But at the end of the day, I just want your undivided attention so we can get our statements across. And you can hear from us, because if we're here tonight to address this yet again, it's not because we're a bunch of crazy people as the way we're talked about. We are concerned citizens as it relates to the DNA's footprint of downtown. And this park is being currently, quote unquote, dissected in a way where there is no plan. It's one individual going out there and saying, I'm measuring this, I'm doing this and this, without outreach like they've done on previous parks through the District 2 Commission. We understand it's a trust park, but we're still entitled to voice our opinions with that. Chairman?
So what I would like to do is, we're going to give you a presentation. I'm going to ask that the presentation is not repetitive. It's specific to this park, the warrant, the equipment. It follows the lines of what we need to make a decision on.
Correct.
So if you're in agreement with that, let's move forward with the presentation in the best interest of time.
Okay, so what I will do, if there's repetitive slides or anything, I'll either touch on it or move past it.
Very good. Let's go.
And not as intervener.
I'm sorry?
Not as an intervener, correct?
If that's the will of the body here today?
No, let's move forward. You have the
Okay.
presentation.
So we're beyond the decision process that we've already taken today. So we support the appeal by the 900 board. As I stated before, the DNA has 17 members, residential members that fall under our purview. The 900 came to us with this problem and said to us, there's a destruction of the park of adding equipment. We immediately reached out to the park as the DNA to address what is going on. There was an email that was sent by the interim director that shared with us that they're making improvements, but no further information was given to us. Beyond the technical reasons for the reason of the appeal, this is an appeal to common sense. It is more obvious that the Miami 21 code requires neighborhood input as to any time you're changing the structure of that park. That has been failed to been met by the trust in reaching out. What I spoke about earlier, for example, you have the District 2, the current District 2 commissioner, who has done outreach, which is the proper protocol based on Miami 21 code. Outreach to ask, to receive input, and any changes that may occur, for example, at the master planning for Margaret Pace Park. If we're all classifying parks, these parks also should be considered the same thing in terms of outreach. None of that has been done. The master plan that Margaret Pace Park unveiled gave and also was the feedback by the community. The key word here is the community that uses those parks, which is the downtown area. The plan was presented as a redevelopment. We're not seeing that at MAF Park. Community meetings, workshops. I have gone before the trust and have asked that we have a seat at the table to address these concerns by the community, for the community, to move these items in a way that the feedback is received instead of someone dictating what happens in this park. You, as the PZAB board, is the last and only hope for us to be heard. If this fails here today, it's another caveat that the DNA, along with the community, has to go before the commission to readdress this. And it is an unfair because it's holding you harmless in what needs to be done. When you look at all aspects, it's to follow the lay of the law, which is not happening at the trust. This park, unfortunately, has been in the media's eye for all the wrong reasons. It starts with the tree. It starts with the child falling into the park. It also goes back to something that even back here this summer, when a charter boat went out and had all these balloons and they popped them and they were arrested. But because we're the bald-headed stepchild in downtown and the park authorizes an event that happens there, no repercussions happen because it's under the purview of someone that is controlling that park that has no business in doing so. If that would have happened here, it would have been a bigger problem than what it is. If the board does not reject the warrant tonight, we will lose our park. And what I mean by that, Chairman, Vice Chair, and rest of the board, is it will change the aesthetics of a true green space. A green space that this city, current commissioners, park departments have been arguing that we do need additional green spaces. This is a fabrication of items that are being placed at a rate that is unacceptable. And I remind you kindly, what ends up happening, like I started to state before, we are a community that cares. The DNA bridges the gap between the communities and all these other agencies to address conflict or issues for a better community in terms of quality of life. When 900 community was brought into a conversation and they turned around out of their own pocket and gave the Bayfront Trust $39,000, ask yourself this: who does that? And why was it done? Was for the betterment of the park. And that's the case here, that city is telling you that this warrant was done the correct way. It was not done the correct way. None of us were notified as it relates to the warrant. So what we're kindly asking you and pleading with you here today is, let's send a message to commission and to the trust that this green space shall be an existing green space for years to come. We also understand, based on the DNA's components of putting things together, we're dealing with Parcel B, which is a county asset and doesn't come into play before you here today. We also know and been in conversation with the FDOT, the project under the freeway system that's going to be eventually turned over to either the city or the county, that's going to be yet some type of linear park or whatever they decide to do there. We do have a seat at the table to address that based on the composition of what the population is asking for. I kindly remind you yet again, the community that uses this 90% of the time is the downtown core. We welcome everybody, but there's a narrative that's out there that we're racist and we can't talk about it, and that needs to stop. And we ask you kindly, whatever decision you make here before today, think of the green spaces, think of where you live. Because at the end of the day, we need to coexist together. And our pleas for this are very clear. Save the park. Because if that was being done here in Coconut Grove, with a tree being hacked or a child falling in, whatever the case may be, it would be a different story. But we are not the bald-headed stepchild in this case. We want to preserve the green spaces that were given to us years ago. Thank you for your time. Chairman, Vice Chair, and board members, open to any calls or questions.
Thank you for your presentation. At this point, we're going to open it up for public comment. But the public comment is limited to 2 minutes.
Mr. Chair, if the applicant can also have time before public comment.
Yes, I was planning to give you a moment or time after the public comment.
I'm not the applicant. The applicant is. They're the appellant.
I'm sorry. Okay, the equipment, yes. Does the applicant, actually, I'm sorry. Does the applicant want to speak now or after the public comment? Okay. So we're going to open up for public comment, which is limited to 2 minutes per person. I would ask each person speaking to be specific to the exercise equipment, the warrant, how the warrant was issued, and why you feel the appeal is appropriate given the provisions in the code specific to the city issuing the warrant. Yes.
Thank you so much, David Winker, on behalf of the DNA. If I could put my video up, I'm going to make it very quick. We can disagree about whether a concrete pad should be in this park, but I think we can agree on that the city code must be followed. Miami 21 must be followed. And in this case, I'm going to show you that the code was not followed. Just going to try to get my screen up here. The requirements under Miami 21 are that prior to submitting the application to the planning department, the applicant shall notify all abutting property owners, including those across a street or alley, the city commissioner for the district where the property is located, the planning department, the net office, which is no longer applicable, and official representatives of all registered associations in the applicable net office by U.S. certified return receipt mail. I know this issue came up before, but that was not done. Whether some notices were sent out, again, it's not in the materials, it's not in the materials before you, there's no proof that any of this was done, but I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove to you that this was not complied with. If you go to the application, don't know what page this would be for you, but there's a warrant and indemnification agreement. I was struggling to find the date of the application. I couldn't find a date anywhere. When was this submitted so I could find the clock and do it? And in this, it says in the second sentence, the owner hereby acknowledges that they have heretofore made applications to the city of Miami, Florida for this warrant. This is dated, it shows a date of approval of 5/24. That's an important date. That's obviously the application, yeah, and it's 13 instead of 23, but the idea here is we know that the application was made before 5/24/13 and was in fact signed, my computer's kind of scrambled on it, but it was signed earlier than that. Why is this important? The city's own analysis concludes that it found that the notices were sent to all abutting property owners and registered associations. Again, no proof of that. I don't think it happened. Did anyone here get a notice? Anybody? Not a single notice. That's the facts, and it's not in your materials. But again, I don't have to prove that to you because all I have to do is prove to you, all I have to do is show you this, that it says it was done on or about June 1. Let's just start with that. Not in compliance, right? Remember, it said it had to be done before. There's a reason for that, to ensure that everyone participates. It may seem like a small thing, but it's the most important thing, and what people are complaining about is the process on how this goes. Again, we can disagree whether we want this equipment here. There's obviously a disagreement between the city and these residents, but we have to agree that the city at least comply with its own code. I have shown you, and I'll submit these materials for the record in case we have to appeal, but it is shown that on June 1, the notices were sent out, which was well after this application. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to speak on this item?
Right. Jan Schwegmann, 900 Biscayne Boulevard. First, I would like to correct two statements that I heard here tonight. One was made by the city. To me, it sounded like the gym equipment isn't there yet. It is there. There's a fence around it, but it is there. Right? The second, when we talked about the intervener status, we talked about the speculation of other dog parks and so on. Dog parks are there. So these two changes already happened. And if you include the dog park, they actually take up a fair portion of the park. They're not in the master plan. When I bought my apartment 2 years ago, the park was a big factor. It was a big factor because Miami doesn't have that many parks that are just nature. So for me, it was important to have that park there, and it was part of my investment decision. When the city now goes and says, well, the master plan is there, but I can just put a warrant and change something, for me, the city loses credibility because in all other cases, I see the city actually arguing based on a master plan. And as was mentioned here last time at 1:30 in the morning, the city can't have it both ways. You stick to a master plan or not. Second point I would like to make, community outreach. I have not heard of any community outreach. It was presented here that the park is there for the residents, the equipment is built for the people that live in the buildings across the street. You have here tonight, I think from a lot of the different buildings that are, by the way, represented by the DNA, members here that are not in agreement with this. So I think that's important. The argument is made it's there for the residents, yet the residents weren't even consulted. I think there needs to be a process in place. And again, yes, this is not only about the gym equipment, but this is about the future of the park and what happened to it in the future, right? Okay, 2 minutes.
In conclusion.
Conclusion, deviation of the master plan from a community perspective, investors' perspective, and no community outreach at all.
Thank you for your comment. Good evening.
Good to see you guys again. My name is Eric Hayes from 888 Biscayne Boulevard. I'm an owner and resident there. I just wanted to state that I think, like a lot of other people have said, that when you're designing a park, it's not something that's supposed to be done in solidarity, especially when you don't talk to the residents in the community that live around the park that could recommend what it is that the city really needs there and the residents really need there. I've lived in that building for 3 years, and I am very diligent about all of the emails I receive from our building and our association. I've never received one communication about anything that's being done in the park, and I wake up some mornings and something's being built, something's being cut down. There's containers being moved in and out in the middle of the night that were there one day and they're gone the next day. I guess and then to read in the newspaper that, you know, as a school teacher, I'm being called a racist and elitist for having an opinion about that is very disconcerting for me by a city official. So I just wanted to state my opinion about that.
Thank you for your comment.
Thanks.
Good evening.
Hello, my name is Nicole Desiderio. I've lived in downtown Miami for 13 years now. About a year and a half ago, in March of 2020.
We need your address for the record.
Sorry, 900 Biscayne Boulevard.
Thank you.
About a year and a half ago, in March of 2022, I started emailing the directors at the park for issues that I saw that was occurring. I have here 50 pages of emails that I printed out. I actually have 350 pages. I just couldn't wait to print all of them out before I got here. I have them in PDF form if anyone wants them. From March of last year, I was emailing Mark Burns. Then he was no longer working there, and then there was another director that came in, Frank Rodriguez. And then, between then and now, there's now an interim director, I believe, Miguel Ferro. So in between all that time that I'm emailing, discussing issues with the park, I'm being ignored for weeks on end. They don't respond to the emails, then they respond and say they'll get me a response. So you can imagine that it's frustrating for someone who lives in the neighborhood when they see all these changes now going on in the park. I have a picture, and I believe this is Joe Carollo on September 18th, and I've taken a screenshot as well from my phone so you can see the date. September 18th was a Monday. He is in the park with 2 workers, and you see a tool in their hand, it's a measuring wheel. They were measuring where they were gonna put the gym on that day. This is a picture of them on the east side of the dog park. I personally witnessed them then walk over to where the gym is currently with that measuring wheel and measure out what they were gonna do. And the very next day, Tuesday, September 19th, the construction started on installing that gym. And by the end of that week, it was completely installed. So things happen in the park without us even having an opinion or knowing until it's already done. You would think that the year and a half that I've been emailing directors at the park, they would say to me, hey, if you're this concerned about the park, we're having a meeting about it, come voice your opinion. No one has ever said that to me. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members. Peter Ehrlich, 243 Northeast 59th Terrace. I'm here to support the residents who are asking you to protect Ferre Park. As many of you know, the park at this location, which was known as Bicentennial Park, was 27 to 29 acres 20, 25 years ago. Now that there's 2 massive buildings were allowed on the north side of the park, there's only 14 or 15 acres left that can hold grass and trees. That's it, and growing smaller by the day if you listen to the testimony of the residents. Now, many of you might have read the story that was in the Miami Herald on 13th, 2023. It's written by Linda Robertson. It described the Bayfront Park Trust killing a beloved tree and included photographs. And the tree was killed without a permit. The Miami Herald reporter, Linda Robertson, reviewed the permit application, which was on the city website. It listed the wrong address for the tree. It listed 1075 Biscayne Boulevard, which is property of Miami-Dade County, Miami-Dade County Water and Sewer. Is a very obvious mistake, readily apparent. It turned out that the executive director of the Bayfront Park Management Trust signed the application to kill the tree, signed it as if he was an executive of Miami-Dade Water and Sewer, and he had his signature notarized. It's all in the city records, it's on the city website. Subsequently, a landscaper killed the tree without having a permit. This was all in the story. I ask you to show respect for our parks and to respect grass and trees and the adjacent neighbors who are here tonight spending time trying to help Ferre Park. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Would anyone else from the public like to speak on this item?
Am I able to speak as public, or does it matter at this point?
You had a presentation,
But now I'm coming to you as a resident.
You don't stop.
I think I can do the 2 minutes.
You don't give up, I have to say.
I can't. So do I have the floor?
If there's something else.
Thank you. James Torres, 253 Northeast 2nd Street. As a concerned citizen, we cannot allow individuals to try to leave a legacy project that is not being reached out and or funneled to the community. The city has already presented some information that clearly states that it is a community that should have the first right of refusal in addressing things. The outreach is never there. And that's the key component to this entire warrant. Amenities are being added in which 90% of this community is using that park. Amenities are not warranted and or needed. Based on what Steve Smith stated earlier, each of these individual buildings have amenities. What we're asking for and looking for is a true green space and not deviating from a master plan that was approved by commission through City Hall to give us this city, this green spaces. That's the key to this. We cannot let this go today, folks. I kindly ask you, again, for your undivided attention in revoking the warrant and removing that equipment that is currently there. Donate it to YMCA. Donate it to somebody else that may need it. But this part of the community that is already presented by the city clearly states that it is a community that is giving back in terms of using that park. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Board.
I have a question for him, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Let's finish with the public comment, and then we'll have an opportunity to ask anyone any questions. Would anyone else like to speak on this item from the public? Quickly, please. Please.
Eric Hayes, 888 Biscayne. As of yesterday, our building association and management has filed an appeal for the same exact thing. So I think we'll be back here with another bunch of people that, I mean, half of these people are from 900, some are from 888, some are from 10,000. It's a 1,000 museum. I mean, it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger because, I mean, if it wasn't a hurricane today, you'd probably see an extra 20, 30 people here.
I think we're making a decision this evening, but we'll see.
Much.
Thank you. Would anyone else from the public like to speak on this item? I'll give the applicant a moment if you have anything you want to say, or you're just available for questions. You want to say, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chair, board members, and everyone here tonight with us. My name is Centravia Butler. I'm the Special Events Manager at Bayfront Park. Here next to me is my Interim Executive Director, Miguel Ferre. We are representing Bayfront Park, located at 301 North Biscayne Boulevard, Miami, Florida 33132, who also manages Maurice A Ferre Park, located at 1095 Biscayne Boulevard in Miami, Florida, 33132. We would like to present to you 3 videos. The first one capturing within a few hours with testimonies in both English and Spanish, providing positive feedback from residents and visitors regarding the many productive changes and the new additions of the exercise equipment that has been placed at Maurice A Ferre Park. The second video we will show you, it will have images of the exercise equipment and the area of the park which is closed pending the results of this appeal. The third video comes from Raul Segura, a resident that lives at 900 Biscayne. He shares his views on the progress of the park and the new additions to Maurice A Ferre Park, including the exercise equipment. I would also like to mention that all of our board meetings are open to the public. And this particular exercise equipment, it was approved by our board members on February 14th, 2023, unanimously. And we are always open to the public. Everything is posted on our website when our board meetings are coming up on the agendas. So I just wanted to make that point. I am ready for the videos. Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Sam. I actually moved down to Miami from Chicago a year ago. I live right across the street at Bezel. Yeah, I mean, you guys have been doing a great job in the park. It's
I'm sorry. Sorry. I did that.
How you doing? My name is Sam. I actually moved down to Miami from Chicago a year ago. I live right across the street at Bezel. Yeah, I mean, you guys have been doing a great job in the park. It's absolutely amazing. All the statues and stuff that you guys put up and just how clean everything is, it's awesome. I mean, I go on morning walks here, like I said. You know, I go on runs at night, all around, you know, up and down around the whole, what do you call this, Marina Bay, whole thing. It's awesome. And it's always well kept, and, you know, the grass is nice. We come out here, play baseball. And I don't know, are you guys in charge of, like, all of that as well? Yeah, that's beautiful. Every time I'm there, I'm always like FaceTiming everybody, like, look at this is so cool. Yeah, you guys have done a really good job. Beautiful. And then this, I didn't even realize that this was here, to be honest with you. Yeah, the gym, yeah. This is cool. Yeah, no, it's awesome. I absolutely love it.
Mi nombre es Estefanía, vivo en esta área de Edgewater, aquí en el 1000. El parque me encanta, para todos, para los perritos, para uno en la mañana salir a trotar, el ambiente. También tenemos aquí una facilidad que es la cafetería que tiene el Museo de Arte. El parque de los perritos es increíble. Y además vi que pusieron un gimnasio nuevo. Y ahora pasé y dije, wow, porque súper asequible hacer una trotadita y después irse a hacer pesas. Y las máquinas están buenísimas, al aire libre. Buenísimo, la verdad que se sacaron un 10 con ese gimnasio. No, que me encanta el parque y lo están cuidando muy bien.
My name is Brandon Carter. I think the park is wonderful. I come out here every day, walk, and sometimes I see dolphins, manatees. Really cool. Oh yeah, I think it's going to be great once they have it done. I mean, I got to see it, I got to experience it. It's not finished yet. So once it's complete, open to the public, I'll be excited to check it out. Yeah, it is. The trees are great. Everything here is beautiful. The landscaping is really well put together.
I'm Elizabeth. I live here in Marina Blue, and I am every day in the park with my dogs, and I love what they're doing, the trees, and everything is going to be beautiful. It's going to be the best park in Miami. And I'm very happy that they're making so nice for everybody, and the people can come and enjoy the park. Thank you very much.
Mi nombre es Sander y como saben, yo soy residente aquí en Parque, vivo en Marina
Mr.
Blue,
Chairman,
y
we were not provided.
Bueno, incluso yo no había visto lo que están haciendo aquí en el gimnasio y toda esa área que están haciendo de actividades. Súper que linda, y además a mi esposa y le encantó. Y siempre la comunidad ha sido alegre, pero con eso ahora mucho más, porque yo me metí que también voy a venir por las tardes de gimnasio y acá a hacer un poco de cardio, ¿sabes? Que más calorías. Pero súper que chévere todo y súper lindo.
My name is Eli. I live around this beautiful park. I saw a lot of change here, and we enjoy what is going here, and hopefully everybody enjoy like me, and really I am very, very happy. And again, I enjoy, we live here a couple years, and the last 3 years we see a big change, and we enjoy, really we enjoy. Everybody who comes here, surprise. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place.
Elena, I'm from Maryland. This is awesome. I love cats and dogs, but I'm allergic, so I just took a liking and have lots of family members who love animals and have tons of animals and rescue animals. So I'm taking pictures to bring home.
Hi, so my name is Elsa. I'm a resident here in Miami. I've been to the park for like 2 years now. Back then it used to be just grass, so it used to be very muddy and everything. So I actually kind of stopped coming here. And since they redo it and they put the turf now, it's way better. There is no mud, no nothing. Also, it's great here because of the tree. There is a lot of shade. Whenever it's raining, you can just stay here. So it's really overall an amazing park. And then there is also like, you can just get a walk with the dog outside of the park. The fact that there is water on the park as well for the dog is amazing. There is bathroom. The people are very nice as well there. So the only tricky things is that on the weekend it's hard to find parking. But beside that, every other day of the week, it's really great. Overall, I really love this park. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Eliza. I'm a resident here in Miami, and I'm here at Bayfront Park. It's a lovely park. I come here with my dog a lot. The dog park is amazing. It's always really nice and clean. And there's been very friendly people always every time I come here. It's nice being right on the water. And I've noticed all the nice improvements with the trees and the new foliage. It's a really nice place to be.
Hola, Javier Cierco. Vivo ahí en One Miami. Muy bien. Muy bien, muy bien. Realmente me gusta mucho. Creo que soy de las personas que más lo disfruta porque vengo todos los días en la mañana a hacer ejercicio y el parque es precioso, es muy oxigenante, ¿no? Vale la pena venir aquí a hacer ejercicio. Cada vez se están haciendo arreglos y mejoras que las sigo con interés. Ahora el nuevo gimnasio, hicieron la zona de los perritos, ahora la han mejorado con más plantas, etcétera. O sea, muy bien, la verdad, muy contento con el parque. Excelente, estoy frito porque la abran. A ver qué día ya la abren, porque creo que es muy bueno. Y con las personas que conozco aquí, que venimos todos los días, lo hemos comentado muchas veces, ¿no? Oye, sería bueno que pusieran algunas máquinas, alguna cosita. Y lo que han hecho es un gimnasio súper completo, porque hay como, no sé, 30 máquinas o más. O sea, que está súper bien, súper bien. Excelente, excelente. Ha ido mejorando, ¿no? Antes se veían, en la pandemia, por ejemplo, se veían más huecos, ¿no? Pero luego ya hicieron lo de los perritos, el gimnasio, entonces, pues ahora ya quedan dos áreas grandes que supongo que también las quieren reservar para eventos y ese tipo de cosas, pero excelente, un buen trabajo de tema de poner árboles y etcétera, etcétera, ¿no? Muy bien, muy bien. Okay, muchas gracias al que lo esté haciendo.
That was the first video. Next is the second video with the images.
Excuse me, what is this next one?
It's with the images of the equipment, a video, the actual part. And the third video is with the resident from 900 Biscayne. He's going
Hello,
to speak
my
on
name
his
is Raul Segredo. I live at 3206 900 Biscayne Boulevard. And I'm sorry that I can't be here to attend this meeting today, but I'd like everyone to know that I am for the Maurice A Ferre Park Trust and the improvements they're making in the park, including the gym and the pickleball. And that I don't stand with many of my neighbors that are looking to diminish the park and any improvements that are planned.
That's
We can all agree, we all love the park.
Listen,
Okay.
We're not going to interrupt each other. Yes.
Okay, I just want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to present. And I just would like to say one exercise a day keeps the doctor away. Thank you so much for your time.
At this point, I'm going to close the public comment, bring it back to the board for any questions or comments.
Can I respond to what we just saw as the appellant?
If a board member has a question, you'll have an opportunity. These were videos of their opinions.
Is that allowed to be a part of the record? We could have interviewed 500 of our residents that would have contested otherwise. Okay, ask questions, guys.
Let's go with the board.
Okay.
Can you please have a seat? If someone calls, we'll...
I want to reserve my comments later, but two questions. We've had mentions of over and over of someone in charge of the trust, I guess the chair of the trust. Mr. Torres, who is the chair of the trust, please?
Unfortunately, it's Commissioner Joe Carollo.
Oh, okay, Commissioner. And who is the director of the trust? We also had testimony that an email was sent to the director. Wait, I just want to find out who the names of these people are so they're not nameless. Who is the director of the trust?
Miguel Ferre, who's the gentleman with the glasses.
That's all I want is the names of them so that they're not anonymous. Who is
Miguel Ferro, Interim Executive Director of Bayfront Park.
And did you receive an email from that lady who said she wrote an email to the director of the trust?
I have no recall on that, but
okay, that's all
not on regards of the warrant.
All right, those are the two questions, preliminary questions I have. Thank you.
Would any other board members have any other? Member Gerson?
I'll start. For me, it's pretty simple. I think if we just are focusing on the warrant, we can't be asked to deny or grant the appeal. I think without looking at the cloud under which it was applied for, and typically it's an individual property owner applying for a warrant, and an adjacent property owner may have an appeal, and it's a one-time thing, right? They're applying for one warrant to do one thing, and someone next door says, I don't like it, and here's why. But in this case, it is we have to hear this testimony, and some of these things I don't think are disputable. I haven't heard any dispute over some of the testimony, and even just public comment. But when it comes to signing things on affidavits or notarized documents, misrepresenting dates, things like that, sure, once is one thing. Twice, okay. But, to me, I don't think that this warrant is even, if even some of this is true, in front of us. And I think that this is really difficult for me because I consider myself a friend of a lot of people on the staff. I've come to know them and appreciate the position that they're in. And this, in particular, this case this has kept me up at night. Because I think everybody's really tired. I own businesses in this city. I think I take a risk in even saying how tired I am of this. But this, it smacks of really almost someone taking pleasure in upsetting people. As I mentioned in the last time when we started to hear this, I think this park is obviously everyone thinks it's important. I even think the chair of the trust thinks it's important. But to disregard, to take active steps to disregard the neighborhood's input and the group that's best, I would say best suited because they're closest in proximity, have the highest density of residents, that type of thing. To have some input is a thing. And I think the position that staff has put in over and over again, this is just another example. I don't envy the position. I think if this was in front of us more properly, not more properly, but without the cloud, we could talk about it. But I don't even think it doesn't sound like it's proper. The notice issue that came up, at the last thing, in terms of whether people got notices or whether they were properly sent out. I actually think the city did what they were supposed to do by sending them out. I am a little concerned about, Mr. Winker's accusation about the dates and the differences and when they were sent out versus when decisions were made. But in any case, I think there should be exercise equipment in the park. Why wouldn't there be? It's a park for the people. Where it is, how it's placed, how much time and energy is spent designing it in context of everything else that needs to go into that park over time. I think that's another thing that seems to be upsetting everyone, and I think rightfully so, because that's where that's the value of the input, right? We have the master plan, staff can analyze and say it fits or doesn't fit or whatever, but then you also have the residents who would have something to say, and then I think also the point that decisions can get made a long time in the past, and the way people view these types of projects changes over time. And best practices being implemented on such a large and critical green space in the city, we spend more money and effort on way lesser things. And here's something that's going to live on, slapped together dangerously without permitting. It's just a slap in the face to every resident in the city and every visitor. And I understand that they can find a couple people out in the park and say, "Oh, we love the park," but who doesn't like being close to the water? That's great. But when you look at things like, I think I might have mentioned this last meeting, but South Point Park and the incredible mix of uses and things, and I understand. I think that's the frustration: is why can't we have nice things like that? That's obviously was very heavily master planned, tons of money spent on it, and the payoff is huge because it's always packed with people all through the year, and you can do anything with any age member of your family or whatnot, or bring people in from out of town, and I think that's the type of park people want, and that's not what's going to happen if we don't do something about this now at this board.
Let's continue in order here. Member Min?
I agree with part of what Member Grinson says. I think that because the city has 15 parks with exercise equipment in it, I don't think that's the issue here. It's really not. So I think that on the face of it, it's pretty clear that we're not talking about just this warrant, but to talk about anything other than that here tonight, I think would be inappropriate because it's a much bigger question that really should be discussed in a different venue. The cloud that Member Gerson mentioned, that's something that seems to be a cloud around a lot of things that this city does. But I've seen at Kennedy Park, particularly, I've seen that exercise equipment used by joggers mostly. They stop, they change their routine, maybe they just rest, and they move on. I mean, it seems to be a good idea in itself. I would not want to throw away the money that's been put in there for the exercise equipment, which is taking up a very small footprint. I understand what the issue is about. You don't want to pave over this park. I wouldn't call this paving it over. I think what you're all afraid about is what comes down the road. I think that somebody mentioned an appeal, that would come no matter what, because I don't think the trust, I have no clue what the trust plans are. You all have mentioned that there's more coming down the road. The presentation showed other elements coming down the road. If I could ask City on that issue, would any further installments in that park require warrants as well, and they would come before this board?
So a recreational use facility in a civic space is allowed only by warrant. A warrant is a conditional use permit. So there essentially is a conditional use permit. It is based on the impact of that recreational facility on the surrounding areas. That's the ultimate question of whether or not a warrant or a conditional use permit should be allowed. And so it is tied specifically to the plans that are given to us. So if a further recreational use facility were to come along, because it's not part of this warrant or part of this conditional use permit, it would either require that this warrant is modified or it would require a new warrant.
I don't even know for certain that this idea was born of a pocket item. I understand it. I've heard that it is, but I don't know. Pocket items are certainly not strange in this city. I did a little research, and the only number I could find was 1999. 255 of them were approved in that 1 year. And I know that in the 20-something years that I've been following city politics here actively, pocket items have been very common. I mean, they're a normal way for business to be conducted when they don't have an overly large impact on the budget. It sort of clears the docket for the commissioners. But in this case, I think that if we just look at this one warrant, to deny it would be saying that we would be making a statement that we don't want anything else in this park whatsoever. And I don't know if this board is in a position to make that kind of a determination now. Certainly the people that live around the park would love it to look like the gardens at Versailles, of course.
If I may,
who wouldn't?
Excuse me, you get an answer to your question.
I don't think he's asked the question yet.
Who asked what else was coming?
Please have a seat. If he asks you a direct question, we can.
I'm going to ask that question, but actually I don't have to because the presentation already mentioned pickleball courts and soccer fields and everything else, and I just don't see that park turning into soccer fields or pickleball courts. But certainly that's the kind of thing that probably would not pass on a pocket item basis. I think that commissioners have to vote on pocket items. So as I said earlier, if you amassed an army and asked for time on a non-agenda item, you could make your voices heard at commission, and that would really help your cause. I don't know if something as large as soccer fields could or would be appropriate as a pocket item, but I know that when I first started as an activist, caring about what went on in the city, I showed up at commission meetings all the time and spoke my mind. I actually had to apologize in public one time because I got a little hot under the collar. And at any rate, I think that I would move right now to deny the appeal strictly because it's just exercise equipment that we're talking about now. And to allow the appeal at this point, I think would be making a much bigger, broader, and deeper statement that would require much more work. Certainly the cloud that Member Gersman mentioned, that's something that would have to be really vetted. I mean, that's not, I mean, who would we call in to figure that out, to work that out? Whether this item was really, I mean, how about notice? Can the city shed any light on
Yes.
the chronological order of notice? Was that correct or not?
Notices, so Miami 21 requires budding property owners to receive notice by certified mail. And what happens is our staff prepares a letter. That letter is then taken by the applicant, and then it is mailed, certified to a list of abutting property owners, and then we ask them to submit copies along with the certified mail receipt that are uploaded into our ePlan project doc system. You can see that these are dated June 1st is when they were mailed. These are the letters that were prepared. And then both the Downtown Neighborhood Association and 900 Biscayne Boulevard condo both received, or were sent, I'm sorry, I don't know if they received them because all we ask is that they are sent, and then this is provided to us as part of our documentation within what we review, and that was done. So those were done on June 1st. Miami 21 then states that the warrant shall not be issued before 30 days. And so our parks planner noted that no opposition was received based on these notices being mailed. And the warrant was not issued until after 30 days of this notice. I know there was some question about the hold harmless. The hold harmless only allows for the applicant to waive the appeal period, not the warrant period, not the notification, not anything else. So it allows them to take the approved warrant plus the hold harmless, and it allows them to go and get their building permit and then begin work with an issued building permit on the recreational use facility. By signing that hold harmless, the applicant says that if this is appealed, they will stop work, and then if they lose the appeal, they will have to remove all the equipment. So that is all the hold harmless does. It is not an issuance or an approval of a warrant. It just says that your appeal period, if you would choose to waive it, can be waived. However, if it's appealed, you incur any cost that is associated with that and any of the work done within those days.
So as far as the city's concerned, there's no notice issue.
So as per Miami 21, there is no notice issue. Notices were sent via certified mail. They have been uploaded. They were reviewed by staff to include all of the abutting property owners and associations that should have been included.
So what it really comes down to, if there's no technical reason and there's no legal reason to deny, to remove the equipment, that doesn't leave us much room except to approve it, to deny the appeal. But I am concerned about, as your presentation said, paving over the park. And I know Commissioner Carollo is a big park lover. I mean, I know that he likes to create parks. I don't think he wants to ruin this one, but I never speak to him about these issues, and I don't know what his plans are for this park or any other park. accept what you all have said, that there are other things coming in the pipeline, but that you all, because you're preemptive here, this is a little bit, this stuff was in the park already, right? And the city has already made its case, and it seems defensible. I would say that, I would ask you, are you all specifically dead set? I know you have gyms in your own buildings, but this is a city park, and there are 15 other parks that have equipment in it. So if this issue was just the gym equipment, would we still be having this conversation? Or is this just the first?
There have been many residents that have questioned the leader of the Bayfront Park Trust about his future plans, which he very arrogantly says are right here. You know, I wonder if the city has not already received warrants for pickleball courts, which he has suggested will be a new amenity in the park. I would ask the city if they have a warrant for a soccer field.
Could I ask that?
I looked earlier and I did not see anything. I'll check again.
As I mentioned earlier, the commissioner, he needs approval. He's got to have majority vote. So if there was anything else coming down the pike, the commission meetings would be the right place to stop that.
This has been a learning experience, as you understood, from 1:30. The first night we met, we will take all of our legal actions.
Well, you've learned quite a bit in the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
Right? And this was a better presentation than 2 weeks ago.
And sir, if we're looking at this in a vacuum and just focused on the gym, our answer is still absolutely. You know, we were under the understanding that when we filed the appeal, the construction would stop. It never stopped. So if the city had done as they were supposed to and stopped constructing once we filed the appeal, the argument that, well, the equipment's already there and we'd hate to see it torn out wouldn't be relevant here. So, you know, process has not been followed.
Does the city have an answer for that?
And the illusion that there's open public meetings, with all due respect, ask some of our citizens that have shown up at 6 o'clock, waited till 7, waited till 8, waited till 9 before the commissioner would potentially grace himself to call quorum. That happened at least a half dozen times, sir. This, with all due respect, the fact that you anticipate and encourage comment is laughable.
At this time, the planning department has not received any other applications.
Any other questions, Member Man?
We've seen the budget that also outlines.
Please, just.
Well, I think that at this point, I wouldn't want to rip out everything that's there already. It just seems without at least giving it a chance. It doesn't seem to me that the gym equipment alone is worth reversing the city's position and the money that's been spent alone. If you all are concerned, if it doesn't work, if nobody uses the gym equipment and is determined that flower beds would be better there, if you're going to spend the money to rip the stuff out tomorrow or you're going to spend it in 6 months, that doesn't matter.
Why not just move it to?
Do you have a question, Member Man? Do you have a question for them?
No, but I'm still willing to move to deny the appeal with, but I'd like to make another comment after I hear some of the other board members.
Member Parrish?
First of all, I'd like to say I basically agree with Member Gersten that at least we can say that the notice is going to be litigated, it sounds like, if they continue whichever way this board decides. But in my opinion, the public outreach has been deficient, to say the least. And public outreach sometimes, just saying that, like the trust itself, their meetings are open to the public. There are meetings throughout the city And I don't discount the city's momentous task to keep its citizens informed. But they have to, especially with something like Bayfront Park, major effort has to be made with adjoining citizens to make sure that they are apprised of what's going on. And just to say you can come to our meetings, which they have to, as normal, ordinary citizens involved in their everyday lives, they're not going to spend their time going on the city website to see when these meetings are happening. Maybe they should, but they don't. So it's a practical matter for something like Bayfront Park. So I'll leave that for what it is. As far as Mr. Mann saying that, this is just some exercise equipment, that's one of the things that public outreach might have been able to accomplish. For example, in Kennedy Park in the Grove, there's what's called a park course, which means on the walkaway paths that go all the way through the park, at various places, not all collected in one spot, they'll have a pull-up bar, or they'll have a hanging bar, or they'll have a place to do sit-ups that are extremely unobtrusive. And maybe the citizens who live next to this park would have said, yes, we can live with that. We're not 100% in favor of it, but we could live with it. And it's something that some of the people will use. Obviously, you're going to have, for any amenity you put in a park, if you put a pickleball court in there, pickleball is one of the things I know the city is trying to address because it's become very popular over the last 5 years, more and more popular. There are more people probably playing than they are playing tennis. So there's a major move of art that you know about, I'm sure, to change some of the city's tennis courts into pickleball courts. And that's going to be a big fight, too, because there's constituents for all of us. So like every member of this board, we have tremendous respect for our planning staff. They don't have as many people as they need, and they work their butts off. So we're not attacking them at all. But we do disagree with you, which is, as board members, we're entitled to. As far as pocket items, I'm not going to get into that other than to say, for those in the public who are watching, a pocket item comes up at a city commission meeting with no notice to the public. It's not on any agenda. It's just one commissioner says, I have a pocket item, and then they bring it out and they vote on it. Whether or not they have public input, no matter what it is, it's limited. And a lot of times, of course, the public input is cut off early in the morning, so you can't even speak on the pocket items. So I'll leave it said at that. I think they're a travesty most of the time. But that's getting off the subject of our warrant. Savannah, if I heard you correct, you said that this park, you do or do not have to follow the master plan.
So Miami 21 only asks that we look at the Miami 21 code, the intent of the transect, the guiding principles, the intensity of the use, and then Article 4, Table 12, which is design criteria as applicable. It does not ask us to further evaluate the Miami comprehensive plan or any master plans.
And I frankly found that astounding because I have always considered the master plan as kind of to be the guiding principle that Miami 21 has to conform to the master plan. It certainly does on a lot of zoning issues because we changed the flume to accommodate the zoning code. So
I think in this case, the master plan, the parks there is our parks and recreational element as part of our Miami neighborhood comprehensive plan, right? So then from that, we build a use chart, which says that for a recreational use facility, you have to apply for a warrant. So by saying that warrant is allowed, we've already done that evaluation and said that, yes, that recreational use facility fits the future land use designation. So we've already done that work. Now, separately, we adopt into our comprehensive neighborhood plan, we've adopted the 2007 Parks Master Plan, and that is adopted as an appendix. So the 2023 Parks Master Plan came and was adopted by City Commission after this application was applied for and has actually not been codified into our comprehensive plan either yet because we're going through that process currently, as you all know. We sat through many meetings on that.
And I do realize that, in my opinion anyway, that the comp plan sets forth a lot of aspirational goals. They're not mandated goals, but they're aspirational goals. And when I saw some of the stuff that was brought before us tonight, that the people who want to have the appeal approved brought, a lot of those aspirational goals, I think, are very cogent to this issue of whether this, and I think it was you, Savannah, who said that this is an active use in a passive park.
Right, so typically we have both, I mean, when we look at civic space, we have hardscape, we have green space, we have passive uses, we have active uses. So clearly a recreational use facility is an active use within what really is kind of more of a passive park.
It's definitely a passive park because other than the reflection pool that's been, of course, shut down for 2 decades now, which was a big part of the original plan for that park, and the big fight that was over the siting of the museum that took over 1/3 of that park, the 2 museums that are there, which I think they're beautiful museums and they do attract a lot of public use to the area. But still, this was I think, the largest passive park in the city of Miami. Am I correct? Is there another one that's bigger than this?
I couldn't answer that.
Okay, so, but this is an active use in a passive park, and the comp plan to me does announce aspirational goals that the city should be paying strong attention to. And on top of that, we had at least 2 major project plans. One was by Dover Coal, and what was the other? It was Dover Coal, and what was the other one? Was it Dover Coal? Who were the people who did the 20 years ago, the master plans for?
Dover Coal did one, and then Robertson and Partners did the other.
And they're both extremely well-known and recognized authorities on how parks should be. And they had all these proposals for how the park could be enhanced with trees and hills and other passive uses. So unlike Member Mann, I'm looking at this and saying, this is an active use. It's not even a park course. It's a paved over part of maybe a small one. Everybody can disagree on whether this would be attracting people to the park or blocking the views. I mean, that's what makes this great, is we can have a debate if you have public output. So let's see what other questions I have.
I think that...
Okay, let's see. The public outreach, I've already talked. The erroneous survey thing, I'm sure that's going to be, if the survey was not accurate, I'm a small-time developer, very small, and I do know that this 12-month requirement for an accurate survey, and when it's certified, the surveyor is supposed to certify that everything that's on the original survey is exactly the same as when he certifies it. And the testimony tonight is that did not happen. So that by itself is one reason for me. So would you like to answer that?
The survey that we have on file that was batch stamped as part of the application, as part of the warrant, is dated May 31st, 2023. I'm happy to show it. Should be in your documents.
And that was within the 12-month period that was allowed?
Yes.
And the certification is that it was accurate?
Yes.
And the testimony that we heard that there were mini theaters and some of this concrete had already been poured, and that the trees, none of that had, within a reasonable amount, has changed?
The trees appear to be on the survey.
Okay, all right. So you're disputing that there was an erroneous survey, so that's another issue that's before us. I do appreciate, wait, please. No. I do appreciate the fact that the trust itself showed us that there are numerous people who like the park and probably want it developed more. I have a question for staff. Were there any email submissions on this item that were sent to the board for this meeting?
The online public comment?
Public comments. Were there public comments submitted?
No, I didn't see any public comments for this meeting or the last one.
Okay, so no public comments that were submitted by email. Again, without getting into the politics of it, which are definitely present in this item, I am very strongly leaning to grant the appeal, but I want to hear with the other board members, please. Thank you, Svan. I appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, do we have an opportunity to cross-examine the executive director about potential?
Unless the chair wants to.
No, not at this moment.
I would like to hear what you had to say about the comp plan.
Sorry, could you say that one more time?
You got an argument with regard to the comp plan?
Yeah, so I mean, I can show you exactly where it says that it has the effect of law. This isn't a loose suggestion. Like, I'll show you guys exactly where. Just bear with me. Is it showing up on your screens? I think we're on the camera up there still.
We see the survey. Thank you.
Sorry, you guys are not seeing what I see. Negative? Okay, I can read from
It usually lags for a minute. Just it'll be there.
Okay. There we go. Wait, we got one screen doing something. Let's try one more time. There we go. So you guys can read for yourselves, but MCNP creates a policy framework that has the effect of law to guide all public and private development decisions in the city. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward to me. There's also state law that supports that.
So again, our land use regulations are based on the Miami Comprehensive Neighborhood Plan and our use chart, which allows this use by warrant, has been followed. We are then given criteria to evaluate that warrant or that use that is allowed by the Miami Comprehensive Neighborhood Plan in Miami 21, and that is the criteria which we followed to evaluate this warrant. It does not ask us to further look at master plans. It does not further ask us to look at other policies and objectives and goals within the plan. It asks us to look at the use, which is allowed based on our use chart, which is based on the Miami Neighborhood Comprehensive Plan.
How about the survey discrepancy?
The survey discrepancy?
The survey discrepancy, interestingly, May 31st, only one day before they signed the permit. I mean, the day in the catalog of these events really become very curious to me, gentlemen. And I have not seen this public record that's been disclosed, but I would bet a lot of money that it doesn't show the increased parking capacity for this theater group that is multiple trailers where they perform these artsy small plays.
But we've got it right here where, I mean, the survey was initially rejected, right? You can see this, saying it was out of date range, so.
So that is a building permit, that is not the warrant.
So the survey with the warrant?
The survey with the warrant is dated, and I misspoke, it is actually dated May 13th, 2023.
Does it show the improvements that we're discussing?
The added parking, the theater area, the tree
I'm happy
that's
to
no
show
longer
it
there.
if it will come up. I'm trying to, I plugged it in, I don't know, I can't make it work.
In the meantime, one more question. So I think it was about that, the hold harmless agreement, when we file that, one of the things that it's for is to make sure that in the event an appeal's filed, that work stops. Did that happen in this situation?
So the planning department does not stop the work, so I can't speak to that. So the hold harmless says that work should stop.
What are the repercussions if work doesn't stop?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, they have to pull out anything that they put in. So it's just really preventing them from continuing work. But at the end of the day, whatever they've done, should the warrant be appealed and then revoked, so to speak, the applicant would have to pull out all of the equipment. So, I mean, I don't know that it always necessarily.
To your point, I think we all did take an oath, and I think I have many people here that witnessed and could attest to the work did not stop.
No, I get that, but ultimately it's on them then, the loss.
I mean, at the end of the day, if the warrant is revoked and then not appealed to city commission and then not appealed to civil district court or wherever it goes beyond that, at the end of the day, the trust would have to pull out the equipment. That's.
Thank you. Member.
And I think if you guys unplug yours, maybe.
Sorry about that.
Maybe mine will show up.
Member Carell? Member Carell, Member Rodriguez, any questions, comments?
Yeah, I do. I find this like procedurally deficient. I love what staff does for us, for giving us counsel, but you can't provide cover for them. They did it wrong, in my opinion. I'm sitting here in the capacity as a lawyer, and I agree with that gentleman right there. You didn't do it right. Substantively, I think this is a solution looking for a problem. I agree with the presentation that was given before. All these buildings, all these residents have a gym, a state-of-the-art gym in their buildings. All you're doing is inviting other people to come into the city, which may be a good thing, but the residents that live there don't want to have this there. And God help us when Ultra comes in, what they're going to be using that little gym area for. I don't even want to think about that. In terms of the DNA, they serve as a watchdog in this area. And I would encourage you to continue your efforts in that respect, because if not, we wouldn't have found out about this. Because yes, you might post this on your website or whatever, yeehaw, but you didn't send out, you don't send out notices to everybody. There might be a rebuttable presumption that you did with this June 1st information that we received, but I live in the area. I don't agree necessarily with my colleague, Mr. Mann. You may not live in that area, I do, and I see all the likes that go there. I'm very liberal in my beliefs and my societal beliefs, but I also believe that at this point, you can't let the government run willy-nilly on these positions. I'm definitely ready to make a motion to approve and grant this appeal, and I don't have to listen to any other member in order to make that determination. Thank you.
I have a few questions. I have a few questions for the applicant. If you could please step up to the microphone for a moment.
Yes.
What goes into the decision to try to add this equipment at the park? Do you conduct
This decision
surveys
was
or-
made in a board meeting of the trust, and it was on way before I was the interim executive director. The decision was made on February 14, if I'm not right. February 14, 2023.
And how many members are on the board?
How many members?
Yes.
At that time? 7.
Okay. But what sort of...
And it was unanimously decided.
What sort of actions are done to know that that is the best thing to do for the park? Do you conduct surveys of people walking through the park?
Well, from what I understand, every procedure was done properly. There was the survey, there was the permit, and actually
I'm
the
not
permit
talking-
at this demo is closed.
I'm not talking about the survey of the property. How do you go about making a decision whether or not this is an appropriate or a needed item for a park?
Well, the fact is that during the board, the project is presented, so everybody is able to talk, even the public, when they go to the board. And after that, the chairman or anybody of the board raise an issue, make a motion, and the motion is approved unanimously, then they just proceed and do it.
I'm clear on the board. I
Okay.
understand the 7 members of the board, and
All right.
I understand how they make a decision. But what goes into deciding if this exercise equipment is needed, if it should be 10,000 square feet,
Well, that
5,000
would be
square feet?
that would be a project that was presented to the board. I wasn't there at the time, but then they talked about it. They feel that whether it is good or not, I have no idea.
So in this case, did the trust hire a consultant who is a park expert, a planner? Like who initiated that?
I can talk about something that happened when I wasn't there.
Okay, just generally
I'm not
then.
aware of. I have no really what happened.
So just say
But I
generally
know
today,
it was decided properly.
someone wanted to add a playground.
Yeah.
Is that just a decision that's made by one of the 7 members to say, I think a playground would be great here? Or do you actually go out to the people who use the park? Do you hire a park expert? Like, what goes into that decision-making
Well,
outside of the 7 people
The
who make...
decision is never made under the spot. Obviously, if you want to bring a splash park, we will do all the necessary due diligence to find out whether it's feasible, it's needed, and then we actually hear everything, and then we contract, for instance, people that are expert on it and find out information whether it's feasible or not.
But most of the
So
ideas.
it's never, they are never, from my experience on the last two boards, nothing is approved on the spot. It's being ongoing, oncoming.
But it's initiated by one of the 7 members of the
It
board.
would be, no, it could be initiated by a public, somebody that knocks the door and said, I want to do this. Not necessarily from one of us.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may ask a follow-up on
Sure.
what the...
Go ahead.
So, as we know, there were 2 previous major expensive studies done of this park, and I know Victor Dover of Dover Coal is still in Miami, as far as I know, and he's readily accessible. He comes to a lot of, gives test. Did your board ask Victor Dover to come before your board?
No idea for this particular case.
Did you ask anybody from Dover Coal or the
We
other?
haven't had any other projects with this size.
Did you discuss either of the previous 2 plans for this park that were paid for with taxpayer money? These were major, major plans. Did you get anybody from either one of those study groups to come and give testimony to your board before you made this vote?
No, well, I've been the director.
Thank you.
My last question is for the city. Could you walk us through a little bit of the timeline? There was a lot of different dates, and it's a little gray to me.
Yes.
Do you need me to unplug?
No, I think it's okay. I can walk them through the timeline with. So based on the timeline that I'm looking at from our permitting system, which is ePlan, or it looks like the applicant began the application on May the 2nd of 2023, and then it was reviewed and cleared. It was reviewed for our pre-screen on May 4th. It was then returned to the applicant, and then they returned that to us on, looks like it was returned to us on May 9th. It cleared our pre-screen on May 18th, 2023. And then from there, it was reviewed by the land development team. It was reviewed by Public Works. It was reviewed by Comprehensive Planning. It was reviewed by Zoning. It was reviewed by AIPP. There were corrections that were asked. It was also reviewed by DRI, our staff who looks for DRI. It was then returned to the applicant for corrections. It was then returned to us in June. We still had additional corrections at that time. The notices were sent out on June 1st. Our reviews were marked as complete on July 10th, 2023. There were some corrections that were required from our environmental review group, and those were marked complete on September 6th, 2023. And then the staff report was issued on September 7th.
Is it common for the work to happen subject to a warrant without the appeal period having been completed? With every single one of our notice letters, when we fill out the warrant notice letter for our applicant to send out, part of that packet is instructions on how to send it out, and is also the hold harmless agreement is included in that. Some applicants choose to fill it out, and we review it. Most applicants choose not to. Okay, thank you. Would anyone from the board like to make a motion on this item?
Absolutely. Motion to approve the appeal brought by the appellant.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So could I just restate it? It's to grant the appeal, reversing the decision of the planning director.
Correct.
Joseph Carell? Adam Gersten?
Yes.
Paul Mann?
No.
Robert Rodriguez?
Yes.
Manuel Vadilla?
Yes.
Anthony Parrish?
You put my, yes.
Chris Collins?
Yes. Thank you for coming out this evening.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Just, yeah, the appeal was
I
granted.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
The appeal was granted, a supermajority was reached.
Thank you.
And this decision may be appealed
And
in the
this-
office of the hearing boards within 15 days from today.
Thank you, everyone, for their time and attention in addressing what is important to the community. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out.
Mr. Chair, if
Yes.
we, I know that there are people waiting for our applications to be heard, but if we can please take a 5-minute recess. Our communication staff works tirelessly to change everything, and there's only one of them. So if we could
Well,
just at least allow them a bathroom break.
We'll resume in 5 minutes at 9:30.